You are listening to a free version of the Majority Report with Sam Seder. To support this show and get another 15 minutes of daily program, go to majority.fm, please.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Public Affairs Director for the Democracy Fund, former senior aide to Harry Reid, Adam Jentleson, author of Kill Switch, The Rise of the Modern Senate and the Crippling of American Democracy. Meanwhile, for the first time in history, the House impeaches a president for the second time. It's also looking increasingly likely that a Senate conviction could come before Biden's inauguration. This as more evidence builds that there was significant planning and possibly aid given to the insurrectionists by Republican lawmakers. In other harrowing news, 4,400 COVID deaths yesterday, setting a new record in this country. Biden reportedly will seek a bipartisan deal, claims he wants to avoid reconciliation to pass a major COVID relief bill. The Supreme Court fires its first shot since Amy Coney Barrett joined it in its renewed assault on Roe v. Wade. Biden to name Gary Gensler as the SEC chair, to many cheers of progressive critics of banks. Less so Samantha Power to USAID. And the former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and others now indicted on criminal charges for the Flint water poisoning. The U.S. federal government executes its first woman in 70 years, the 11th execution performed since Trump removed the moratorium in July of this year. And in India, their court suspends the implementation of a widely protested set of farm laws. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously a very historic day coming after, I guess we are now a week out from, it's sort of shocking to think that that was only a week ago, from a historic and very disturbing attack on the Capitol. Joining me, as always today, Emma Vigeland. And Emma, one of the things that we are hearing more and more each day is there is increasing evidence that there was planning for this assault on the Capitol building, and that planning was aided by Republican lawmakers. This is a combination of video evidence that's emerging, of evidence that I guess allegations made by Democratic lawmakers, and sort of, I guess, circumstantial evidence that we will talk about, including Ayanna Pressley's office. When they barricaded in that office, the panic buttons had been ripped out of the office.
Right. They don't know when that happened or how it did. But again, we're piecing all of these things together, as you said. And the FBI was made aware of the potential violence in these protests. The insurrectionists posting on the internet about how they were going in there as warriors and to take lives potentially, contradicting the FBI's public claims. I mean, shocking that the intelligence community might lie to the public.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they're lying and possible they're just like sort of bureaucratic mess ups. I mean, they are, but I imagine there's a certain amount of CYA. I mean, clearly what happened is all up and down the chain of security. At the very least, there was just a sense of like, oh, these are just white Trump supporters, essentially.
Right.
And they're not going to do any harm to anybody. And whereas, of course, the reaction to something like BLM protests or other types of protests are far more militarized, if you will, and security minded. Now, with that said, there are something like 10,000 National Guards members who are essentially deploying to Washington, D.C. People have seen the images of National Guardsmen sleeping in the Capitol building, getting rest because they're going to be on duty now for days leading up to the inauguration. There is considerable concern that there could be other attacks, either in Washington, D.C. or other state capitals around the country. And we're waiting to hear on that. Meanwhile, as we speak at 12:09 p.m. In the Capitol, we are en route to a vote to impeach the president. And there are reportedly close to a half dozen right now Republican congresspeople who will be voting with the Democrats to impeach Donald Trump. There could be more. There is already pushback against Lynn Cheney, who is been the most vocal member of the Republican caucus to want to impeach Trump. Now, of course, what we're seeing, is a bunch of politics. There are Republicans who are deciding, many of them who, if they were already considered to be never Trumpers, this is their opportunity to sort of distance themselves from a party which gave birth to Donald Trump, which constructed an entire political project that essentially made it impossible for anybody within a Republican primary to beat Donald Trump. And so this is part of their political calculation. And I think it's really important that people are aware that and there's reportedly, and I think I saw a headline from the New York Times. Privately, Mitch McConnell is happy with the impeachment. Now, my definition of privately involves it not being a headline in the New York Times. In other words, if you and I, Emma, and the folks at home know that Mitch McConnell privately is happy that there's an impeachment, I've got news for everybody. He wants it to be known publicly. And this is part of his project to distance the Republican Party and himself from Donald Trump. It is very important that people maintain two thoughts in their mind. One, that it's good if we can get a conviction in the Senate of Donald Trump before Joe Biden gets in office, and some credit, or at least acknowledgement, that Mitch McConnell, needs to be involved in that process, and if it happens, has some responsibility and credit for that. But also be aware that, come on, this is politics, and Mitch McConnell, I don't know if there's a single person in the country who has been more enabling to Donald Trump than Mitch McConnell, starting back in October of 2016, when he said to Barack Obama, if you announce that there's interference by the Russians in this election, I'm going to make you pay a political price for it.
Well, I don't think there's one person more evil than Trump in this country than Mitch McConnell, if we're going to be real. McConnell's just smarter about it and more calculated. I mean, there's a number of things that could result from him clearly strategically leaking this to the New York Times. It's basically a trial balloon. He's trying to see how the public, how the press react. But there is clearly value in the Republicans distancing themselves from Trump at this point, because his approval ratings have tanked by 10 points in 7 days since the attack on the Capitol. Rightfully so. I think it's, according to Politico, their lowest approval rating, around 34% that they have recorded for Trump. He's always been kind of in the high 30s, low 40s. At the start, people were giving him a chance, maybe towards the 50-50 range, but this really tanked it. And he was already tanking after he lost because he wouldn't give it up. So he's toxic. He's radioactive at this point for them politically.
And I agree with you. I think Mitch McConnell is out there and he is trying to get a sense of just how dangerous it will be for his caucus members, perhaps some of them anyways, to vote, and I mean politically dangerous, to vote for a conviction in the Senate. And if he is trying to set up a test balloon to find out if he should, I imagine, in his mind, to assess whether he should bring the Senate back over the next couple of days, which he could do. And we will talk to Adam Jentleson about that very question in a moment or two, to bring back the Senate and have a vote to convict Donald Trump in the Senate. In the meantime, here is another story. And again, this is part of a theme. The idea that Democrats would allow and provide the vehicle for Republicans to be excused in this moment is, to me, just bad politics. Let's play this clip. This is a Democratic House member, Jason Crow, a Democrat from Colorado, essentially letting Republicans off the hook. Even if we are to take this at face value, we know the enormous amount of death threats that Congress people like AOC or Ilhan Omar get on a daily basis. And yet, and I have never heard of any charge that they are not doing something because of that, right, short of walking around in public. Yeah. B, the idea that a Republican would come out and say, even express sympathy. We know the hostility that Republicans have shown to them. Here's Jason Crow doing the work of Republicans here.
We heard earlier, Arnold Caldwell reporting that you guys are going to send over this article of impeachment immediately to the United States Senate once it's passed, perhaps seeing if they can trigger action even sooner. But I want to give you a chance to respond to the process argument you heard from Tom Cole there, saying that this is all being rushed. Obviously, time is of the essence. Are you concerned at all about some of the arguments that Congressman Cole was making?
No, I'm not. I think we have to be honest about what it is we're actually dealing with here. First of all, there's a number of things that are happening on the Republican side. A very small handful, I think, are kind of morally bankrupt individuals who have given in to these conspiracy theories and are too far gone to be redeemed. But the majority of them are actually paralyzed with fear. I had a lot of conversations with my Republican colleagues last night, and a couple of them broke down in tears talking to me and saying that they are afraid for their lives if they vote for this impeachment. My response was not to be unsympathetic, but welcome to the club. That's leadership. Our country is in a very challenging time. Many of us have felt that way for a long time because we've stood up for our democracy, and we expect them to do the same. But the process argument, we have a domestic terror threat that's being led and incited by the president. There are three substantial plots against the Capitol, against members of Congress. They're ongoing now in the weeks ahead, and against the inauguration of the president. We have to do what's necessary to protect the American people.
Okay, so now And to Crow's credit, at the very least, he was not so gentle with his Republican colleagues and not so gentle in presenting it to them. But this is the functional equivalent of, Chris Coons going on there and saying, in secret, a lot of the